Hey there. Welcome to the Pine Island Experience podcast. I'm Joanna Anderson with my husband, Trygve. Each of our episodes will be conversations with fellow Pine Islanders.
The goal of our podcast is to share with you our experiences, what we have found to be fun, and what makes the Pine Island experience so unique.
We had this 60 horsepower and we replaced every single component on it before we could get it to work. And it took about 2 weeks, but we everything but the motor itself, all the fuel pumps, all the electrical stuff, we took everything apart. We replaced everything and it was still not running right. And we're like, we're talking to big people at mechanics at big dealers. We're asking them what's wrong. They're scratching their head. They're like, no, it's this. And we're like, we tried that already. It's not. And finally, after about 2 weeks, we figured it out. And that was definitely a crazy job.
You were listening to AJ Ferrera, co-owner of A&A Boat and Equipment Services, telling us about a job he'll never forget. In this episode, Alan and AJ, father and son team, share their journey from boats and trailers to generators and small engines, and their mutual love of motors. They keep our community moving. And now, here are Alan and AJ. Well, today we have a father and son team, Alan and AJ from A&A Boat and Equipment Services. But we've heard a lot about your neighbors. I think I told you, Alan, how impressed they were. We had to get a hold of you. She gave me your card, so I'm glad you joined us today.
Yes, that's awesome that the community is like that, and your neighbors and everything. Because some people they keep to themselves, and I'm kind of guilty of that too as well sometimes. But that's good that the community is talking.
That's a good thing to have. Yep. Good talent. Well, what we usually do is we start out just a little bit about your background, where you were born, grew up, where you worked, and how you found Pine Island.
Okay. Well, I was born in California. Only lived there very short time, when I was first born for about 8 months. And then my parents, my dad was in the Navy, so they got transferred to Maryland. And so I grew up about 4 years in Maryland. And then he got transferred to Virginia Beach, and I grew up in Virginia Beach. And that's where I graduated high school. However, my family, my mom's side, they still live in Maryland. And so every summer I grew up, as a kid going to Maryland, and I'd stay with my grandparents for the 3 months that I was out of school. And then we would travel down here to Pine Island. They had an RV. And so the late 80s, early 90s, we'd come down here. And then my grandparents decided they're going to buy a house here. So they bought a house in 94, I think it was. It might have been 95. And that's the house that I'm living at now.
Oh, so, sweet.
Yeah. So I've been coming down here since the early 90s, and been enjoying the fishing then. And it has grown a lot because the street that I am living on now, when I first started coming down here, it only had 4 houses on it. Now there's 12, but it's good. I still love it. It's probably the best place I've lived. And being in the Army, I traveled all over and lived in many good places. I lived in Missouri for 3 years. My son, he enjoyed it out there because we had ATVs, and it's out in the Ozark Mountains or whatever. And very good, very, very nice out there. The only bad thing about living out in places like that is the cold weather. I'm not a cold weather person. I just don't do it anymore. So that's why I landed here. 1, the weather, and 2, I just like the small town community feel.
I'm sorry about the weather today.
I know. It's cold.
We're freezing. They're making fun of us up north. It's freezing to us. Yep. Silly. How did your company come to be then?
Well, he was in the Navy. My son was in the Navy, in the Navy for 6 years, and he's very mechanically inclined. And then he started working for a boat repair shop and did that for like a year, a little over a year. And then I worked as a mechanic for a little bit before I joined the military. And I worked at the Ford plant up in Norfolk, Virginia before they closed down for a little bit, part-time basically. And then let's see, during the military, my military experience, 15 years, I was the master driver of a couple of my units. And so you have to learn all the mechanical side of your vehicles. You have to teach and train. So that became, the knowledge just grew on me, and I just learned so much. And that's just something that I've always been interested in. So when I got out, I started working at multiple different farms when I got out of the military. And then when I moved down here, to Pine Island, I got a job with Pine Shine Farms, and I started working there. And I was just doing odd and end stuff. And then I just became their personal mechanic for all their vehicles, from tractors to backhoes to bobcats, skid steers, their lawnmowers, weed eaters, anything that had a motor on it, I was repairing. So, and I got a small engine certification years ago. My son has some certifications through the Navy as well. So me and him, we said, we have the background, we have the knowledge. We work on our boats constantly, or working on friends' equipment. When I was working at Pine Shine Farms, I'm constantly getting calls from friends and acquaintances from the island, or just people back home. And they're like, hey, walk me through the steps. I found a video on YouTube, but it's not telling me, or, am I missing a step? So I'm like, I might as well just make this a business. Let's start. So me and him, we talked. We said, he's like, Dad, let's start this business. There's people that, what I've noticed on boat mechanics is a lot of boat manufacturers or boat mechanics, they don't want to work on anything that's older than 10 years old. So us becoming mobile mechanics and working out of our home, we open that door. A lot of people still have older boats, boats that are 20 years old or 30 years old. And you can still get the parts, might take a week to get the parts in, but you can still get the parts. But you just can't have these mechanics these big time mechanics that working at these dealers. They just don't want to touch these motors. So that's where we come in, in the mix. And we're like, we'll just do it all. We'll do the boats. We'll do lawnmowers and generators, because we're very good at that as well. I've probably done at least a dozen in the past couple months. We do ATVs, side-by-side vehicles, whatever. So that's how it came about.
What made you decide this was going to be on Pine Island in Matlacha?
Because of my location. We're prone for hurricanes. So I know people are probably scrambling around to get their generators and just equipment fixed before hurricanes and stuff, because they might need it after the hurricane. So, I experienced Hurricane Ian, and I was here during the hurricane. So the day after the hurricane, I started meeting locals that I've never met before. And one of the guys, he owns a food truck, and I'm pretty good friends with him. He's local on the island. We just started communicating, figuring out what people need, and coming to find out a lot of people's equipment didn't work after, the hurricane. So my goal is to help these locals, help the Pine Islanders if they stay during these hurricanes. Now, obviously, the government's telling you should evacuate, but you're going to have the ones that want to stay. So if they stay, I want them to be prepared before any type of catastrophe happens again. Yeah, that's what brought me here. That's what that's why I'm committed. I want to help this community stay strong and be prepared for the next time something happens.
Well, that's a great service.
Yeah.
Plus, you were here.
Yep.
A lot of people couldn't get back on the island.
Correct.
And you could help them right after, too.
Correct. I was actually doing some fuel runs on my boat. Thank God my boat lift broke. So I thought my boat was completely damaged and I wouldn't be able to start it. However, very next day, it was bouncing on my dock because the tide was very high still. I put the key in there, started right up. I was like, okay, thank God. And there was only some minor damages. My windshield broke and, some scratches on it. But other than that, so I was doing fuel runs. I was taking people from the island to the mainland, and then I was picking people up from the mainland to the island to help bring supplies and stuff. So it was It was an experience I will never forget. And I've, being in the military, I got some good experiences being in the military. But this one was just completely different, because it hit home.
Now, with those military experiences, any of those that you still find that you employ every day?
Yes. So that was one thing. I had FEMA and a couple other nonprofit organizations come by my house after the hurricane, and they started asking me questions. They were like, "You're here by yourself?" And I was like, "Yes, I'm," they're like, "How are you living?" Because I was sleeping on a cot. And I was like, "Well, I don't like to throw this out there, but this is just military training coming back to me." I medically retired in 2018. Hurricane Ian happened in 2022. And I haven't lost anything. Everything was coming back. It's the muscle memory that I didn't lose yet. It just helped everything. I was sleeping in my truck, because I didn't want to sleep in the house. The house was just destroyed. I had over 4 feet of water in there. There was still mud in the house. So I was sleeping in the truck for the first couple of weeks, but it was nothing that my morale was still high. I was going around helping people evacuate and just talking to the locals. I was cleaning up my house at the same time, but my morale stayed high because my preparedness was just there. I never lost it. I had food, I had water, I had fuel, I had everything I needed. And I was just going around just helping the community make sure that they had everything that they needed, as much as I could, for a single person.
In the same vein, do those experiences drive how you approach the business and customer service and work that you provide?
Yes. Yep. Integrity is number one. I always want to be honest with my customers. I don't want to tell them something is wrong with something, but it's not like, I don't want to overcharge. One thing is I do not like it when people overcharge their customers or they tell them something is wrong. That's not what it is. It's kind of like if I tell you something's wrong with your motor or your engine or whatever, you come back, 2 days later, which I haven't had this and I'm hoping it doesn't happen. "Oh, that's not what was wrong with it. You told me it was this. This would fix the problem." That's my goal, is I find the underlying problem before I give the motor back to you, give the boat back to you or whatever it is. And this way the customer, they feel comfortable and they can trust me. They can call me at any time. I had a customer that I never worked on his generator before. I worked on his boat. Well, he calls me. They were having the golf cart parade for Christmas, and he needed a generator. Well, he needed me to fix his generator right then. And I was like, well, I can't fix it right now. I don't have the parts. I said, but what I can do is I have a generator for it. Just borrow mine and drop yours off. And then, I'll fix yours for you whenever I get a chance. So that's how you build the relationship with the customers. You want them to feel comfortable. "Oh, I'll just call A&A Boats and, they might have a solution right then. It's not fixing theirs right away, but I gave them, the option here, take my generator, you can use it." And then, he was done with it use it for 2 or 3 hours and then brought it back. So that's my goal.
He'll never forget that.
Right. Exactly. I don't do that to impress people. I do it because how I feel about a community like this. You know what I'm saying? The better the community is, the stronger it is, the more it grows on people. People will come down there and be like, "You remember these people that helped us out doing this?" And that's how I met. After Hurricane Ian, it opened my eyes and the vision of, what I want this community to be.
Did you ever think you'd run a family business, and particularly a father-son business?
No. It's I didn't think I was going to do it until he decided he was going to get out of the Navy, and he has his knowledge, and I was like, "Let's do this. Let's make it happen."
And what would you say do each of you bring? Because you probably have a little bit different approaches or a little bit different skill sets. What do you each contribute in your mind to the business?
Well, we're both, here's the thing, that's hard to say because he's very knowledgeable at certain things when it comes to, the boat mechanics and electrician, because he was an electrician in the Navy. And I'm very knowledgeable at certain things. So it's we've never even really looked at who's more knowledgeable or who knows more. And usually, like, if he doesn't know the answer, he'll come to me. And if I don't know the answer, I'm always asking, hey, what have you seen, in this, if you run across this issue, what have you done to correct it? So it's one of those things we're just constantly back and forth, picking each other's brains to find the solution.
Maybe run us down the kind of services that your business supports or repairs or fixes.
We do our basic service, like 100-hour service on boats, 500 hours for the boats. Let's see what else. We do electrical work, if like you need to install a new GPS system for your boat. We don't do too much into fiberglass work. We're just not, we can do it, but we just don't want to do it. And then just anything mechanical, anything to do with the motors itself, fuel issues. We get a lot of fuel issues. And what that entails, which is hopefully, people that are listening, is if you let your boat sit for a long time, you have fuel inside your canister of, if it has a fuel pump, it's kind of like a carburetor almost. You still have fuel sitting inside that canister. And if you let it sit for a year or longer, that fuel is just going bad, and then it's ruining the components in there. And that's why you got to do a proper winterization and drain the fuel out of those components, or else you're going to be coming to me or going to another boat mechanic, and they're like, hey, you got to replace your high pressure fuel pump, or you got to replace, your fuel regulator, or, your fuel lines too. You let the fuel sit in the fuel lines, it's just going to deteriorate over time. That's why, like, a lot of mechanics will tell you, if you use your boat a lot, you're less likely to have constant issues with your boat. If you let it sit for long periods, you're going to probably run into issues. And I'm guilty of it, because I got a boat sitting on my lift, and sometimes it'll sit for like a month before I start it. And I'm like, I shouldn't do that. It should start at least once a week. That's the number one thing.
What would you say is the most satisfying part of your job?
Customers. Making customers happy, making sure that they are satisfied. When I bring them their boat and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm back on the water. Thank God we had someone that can come out and fix this. That is very satisfying for me.
Are you happy with where the business is at, or do you have some plans that you'd like to, any expansion or anything that you're possibly considering?
Yes, I am happy so far. You have minor issues, and no matter what you do. I do want to expand into maybe more like, I want to do like a service where, since there's a lot of snowbirds that come down and they're only here like 3 or 4 months out of the year, I want to expand to like a service contract with them, to where I take their boat out once a month, or at least start it for them once a month. So this way, because a lot, like I said, if you don't start your boat and it's been sitting for years, or, 6 or 8 months, I was like, you're going to come back and there's going to be a fault or some sort of underlying issue with that boat. So I want to start like a program where, they pay me, and it doesn't have to be monthly, but it could be the months that they want me to go out. I'll go out and put their boat in the water, take it for a test run, and see if it needs any maintenance work, because you might need impeller work done, your lower unit, replaced or whatever, if you have any issues with that. So I want to do that. And then there's also another thing that I might want to, that we've discussed, me and AJ, transportation. So like some people keep their boats on a trailer or RVs or whatever somewhere, like in an RV yard. I got a fifth wheel F350, and it's a newer one. So I want to, like, if I need to tow a fifth wheel somewhere or a heavy duty boat, I can launch it for them. And we've done a couple customers where we launch their boats, and that's all they need. It's just they bring it from their house to, the boat ramp. So that's something that I want to get into more too as well. It helps these customers, especially the older ones that just don't want to do it no more, which is fine. Hey, we're here. If you want us to launch your boat for you or take it out, whatever, I'm licensed, I'm insured. And, me and AJ, we're always up for any task.
And then if somebody's interested in your services, how do they get a hold of you? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, best way is by our phone, either my phone number or AJ's phone number. AJ does use his Facebook page for our business, and he does, send out the business contact every week, I think. And yeah, so cell phone numbers, you can call me or text me. Text me if you want with pictures of the issues that's going on or just a detailed description, and I can get back to you. I'm usually pretty quick. Within minutes, I'll get back to you, if I'm not, deep into a job. Yeah, that's the best way.
And, I don't think we've talked about this, but the fact that you're mobile is a big deal.
Yep.
I mean, I can see what if the boat doesn't work, so that you can't get it to the marina.
Right. We've run into those situations where, if they really want to, if we can't fix the boat on the lift for a charge, obviously, because I'm using my gas, I will tow them around to the boat ramp and put it on the trailer. And so if you don't have like sea tow or whatever, then, I'm willing to do that with my boat. We towed a boat the other day. He was out of fuel, and it was a friend of ours that we do maintenance work on his boat. And we're coming through the canal, and we were like, "Hey, bud, are you all right?" He was like, "No, I ran out of fuel." We were like, I was like, "You want us to tow you?" "Yeah, please." So we just towed him to his canal, and so we do stuff like that. I towed 2 of my friends' boats. They were having issues. Actually, 3. Come to find it, because that was a while back that I did that one. Yeah, so we can get it there. We'll be able to make sure that their boat gets on a trailer or whatever.
Great service.
Yeah.
Well, AJ, it's your turn. Oh, we've heard
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Of course.
This is so interesting. We've heard what your dad said. What about you? Now, tell us where you grew up and went to school and up until going into the Navy. And then you recently retired from the Navy. Is that correct, too?
I did 6 years and then I got out. But I was born in Chesapeake, Virginia. And then I lived there most of my childhood. And I moved to Missouri with my dad for 3 years while he was stationed there. And that was really nice. I really enjoyed it out there. And then early 2019, I left for boot camp, went to Great Lakes up there. Right around Christmas time, 2019, I went to San Diego and I did all my 6 years, 5.5 years in San Diego. And I did a deployment overseas and it was fun. I enjoyed it. And I told myself I could expand my knowledge and my career, I felt would be better if I got out of the military and started my own business with the knowledge that I acquired before the Navy and during the Navy. So that's why I decided to get out and say, hey, let's start a business.
And did you enjoy San Diego? It's pretty beautiful, isn't it? Or didn't you get to see it?
It's nice views, but it's not a place for everyone. So it's definitely a lot more expensive than here.
Oh, yeah.
And you get the same pay wherever. So, but it is nice weather.
Well, when did you come to Pine Island then?
I always come here growing up, spring break, during the summers, I'd come here, visit my great-grandparents. I moved here in July. And then pretty much right after that is when we started our business. So I just got out of the Navy in July.
You went right to work.
Yep.
Dad, that's so great. Where did the name A&A, I mean, obviously both your first names, but is that where the name came from, A&A?
Yes.
Okay.
Came from, I'm Alan Jr., of course, so everyone just calls me AJ. We were just like, A&A sounds good.
And was working together something you always imagine that you do, or did it just come about?
It was pretty easy, it kind of just fell in place. Before I joined the Navy, he had a boat that we fully redid the floors and built a center console and put a motor on. And that was very fun. And that was his personal boat that we did. And I really enjoyed doing that. And then I was like, this is easy. Why don't we just something fun we love to do? Yeah. So might as well do it for work.
And you must have the love of motors as your dad too.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Anything on the water, really anything with motors. I love riding dirt bikes. When I was in San Diego, I used to have dirt bikes and I used to go out to the dunes and ride dirt bikes. And I have a lifted Explorer I would take out to the dunes. So pretty much anything with a motor, you can count me in.
What's something would you say you've learned from working with your dad these last few months?
A lot of, it's best to slow down and look at the problem if you can't figure it out and kind of think about it before you actually do it. So there's sometimes we run into certain boats where it's a head scratcher. And even talking to other big mechanics from big shops that we know, and you tell them the problem and they're scratching their head also. So you got to really sit back and talk about it and think, what could be the issue? Because like he said, you don't want to replace something, give it back to the customer, and it's still not working. That's not what we do. So
is it a joint troubleshooting effort? Because your dad kind of alluded that you have different areas of expertise, or is it joint, or how do you go about the troubleshooting process?
Yes, it's joint. Sometimes, most of the time we work together on the big jobs, but there's small jobs that we do individually sometimes. But most of the time, if it's a head scratcher, we'll both be in there tackling it, looking for solutions, figuring stuff out.
What's the common problems you're finding on Pine Island with boats and small engines?
A lot of people just let their boats sit, kind of like he was saying. So people will be like, hey, my boat sat for 2 years. I want to get it running. And there's a lot of fuel issues with them. We get corroded steering cables, throttle cables, a lot of fuel pumps. People wanting their old fuel that's 2 years old drained.
Those aren't always the big, of course, I guess I'm thinking some of the smaller vessels. Those are kind of tight spots to work. How do you work around that? Like there are some things where you have a lot of access and you can get in there, you can get the torque that you need to do it. But a lot of boats and the way they're constructed, at least personal experience says, there's not always a lot of room to work. So, like when you said the boat throttle, that's taking 4 or 5 things apart to get to the cable. I mean, that's a process, is it not? And then maybe something that if it was wide open clear, you could do in 2 seconds, but because of the limited access, it takes you a bit of time to get it done. How do you work through all that?
Well, one good thing I learned in the Navy, and I guess being mechanically inclined, it's kind of like, it's automatic. You should do it. But to do like throttle cables, you just tie a rope to the end and then you pull it out and then you just tie the new one to the rope and pull the rope. And it's actually fairly simple. Most boats that we've done those, I mean, it takes a couple hours, but it's not too backbreaking of work.
What's one job you'll never forget? Now, I know it's only been since July, but...
We had this 60 horsepower and we replaced every single component on it before we could get it to work. And it took about 2 weeks. But we everything but the motor itself, all the fuel pumps, all the electrical stuff, we took everything apart. We replaced everything and it was still not running right. And we're like, we're talking to big people at mechanics at big dealers. We're asking them what's wrong. They're scratching their head. They're like, no, it's this. And we're like, we tried that already. It's not. And finally, after about 2 weeks, we figured it out. And that was definitely a crazy job.
When you said everything, I thought you were going to say you had to replace the cowl as well.
Yeah, I can see why you'll never forget that one. You never gave up?
Nope. That's like he said, I'm not the type of person to look at a customer and be like, well, I can't fix it. You entrusted me to work on your equipment to begin with, so I'm going to actually fix it.
For anybody listening or the community as a whole, what do you want them to know about A&A?
We are reliable, we're fast, and we prioritize anyone. So what I mean by that is if you give us a job, we don't put you on a back burner. We fit you in and make time so we don't have your equipment for 2 or 3 weeks. If you want your stuff done, especially if you say, hey, can you have my stuff done in a week? We will try to work that out and we will move our schedule around. We're very, very flexible with what we do. And also if you straight just want us to come to you and work, because we are mobile 100%, we will just come to you and work 100%. We won't take your boat off the lift. We've done several boats now where we just go work on the lift. And then as soon as it's done, you lower it on the lift and drive away.
It's a nice service.
Yes.
Now, is there anything that you haven't mentioned that you might want to mention on the podcast that we haven't thought to ask?
Sometimes the biggest problem we run into is getting parts for older motor. Any motor that's over like 10 years old, good luck getting parts for. It can take up to 2 to 3 weeks to get parts. And I tell customers sometimes, hey, it can be 2 to 3 weeks before we get this part because it has to be specially ordered. And this motor's 20 years old. Most of them do understand. There is a couple that we've run into where they're like, oh, I need it fixed in a couple of days. Well, I can't find the part. I called about, what's funny is I have a funny small story real quick, but we were looking for this specific throttle cable. And I called West Marine because they said, oh, they have it in stock. And it's for an old boat, an old motor, old boat. And she was like, oh, it's going to be like a while before you can get in. I was like, what is it, coming from California? Like joking. And she started laughing and she was like, actually, no, it's coming from Hawaii. And I was like, there we go. That's why. And we both just started laughing and I just thought that was hilarious. But that's what we run into. Parts have to come from overseas.
Yeah, so you can't repair it today. No.
We've gotten a couple of those people like, I want to, can you repair it today? And we're like, sorry. Like, I wish I could. I really do. But we got to wait for parts. That's
an interesting challenge. I mean, just speaking personally, our motor's 21 years old, but it's 21 years old because I think it's a Yamaha. I can't remember, but because it's always run.
Yeah.
I mean, with normal maintenance, but I mean, someday something's going to happen to it. So a little bit of patience on the customer side.
Yes. We run into several people who they tell us, oh, I tried to fix it myself. And they actually like made it worse. So, but we fix it. We get everything going and it all turns out good.
That's nice of you to do that. Make them feel better. Well, we appreciate this. This was a wonderful podcast. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you very much.
We hope you enjoyed our Pine Island Experience podcast. If you have any ideas for us, people to interview, or any comments, please feel free to email them to us at pineislandexperience@gmail.com. That's pineislandexperience, all one word, @gmail.com. Don't forget to like us, and you may subscribe to this podcast using all the major catchers like Apple iTunes, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Thanks again for listening, and remember, island life is a constant vacation. We'll see you on the next podcast.